Are we coming in loud and clear, Vera? I said, are we coming in loud and clear?
I think so. It's you're a little quiet and like echoey, but
I'm gonna scoot closer, and Jay, you do the same.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Is that better? Just say yes.
That's better, yeah.
Fabulous. So what did everybody think? There's a lot of love in there. A lot of love in the room. Before we get started, I just wanted to say we're not going to ask you about the legal stuff, so you can relax. If you want to know more, just Google People's Joker and Warner Brothers. She's spoken on it elsewhere. We've only got a little bit of time, so we're going to concentrate on the movie itself. We're going to ask a couple of questions, Jay and I, and then we're going to throw it open to you guys. So please have some questions ready. There will be roving mics. One of us will point, and then you will be chosen. You've done these things before. Okay, so first things first. I was wondering, with this film, it really feels like you're consciously building on the kind of anti-comedy aesthetic that you yourself helped to cement with your editing and directorial work at places like Absolutely Productions and elsewhere. It feels like with this work, you're using that same kind of palette, but on a more emotionally and sort of tonally expansive canvas. So what was it like to kind of try and apply some of those ideas and techniques that you'd honed elsewhere in a different kind of sphere?
It was like a lot of fun just because I feel like a lot of times like coming up in that world and that comedy scene, I would want to go a little bit more sincere or like emotionally grounded at times, and it wouldn't always like work, or it would come off ironic just because of the context. So like I really wanted to kind of use the aesthetic to sort of just like blow that apart completely and hopefully demonstrate that like you can kind of do it all at once. And I got to do that a little bit on stuff that I did with Tim and Eric, and Absolutely. Like I made a show called I Love David, that was like a David Liebehart talk show, and
Raj Al Ghul in this
that was
film.
how
I was just saying Raj Al Ghul in this film.
Yeah, and like it was the experience of making that kind of led. That's why he's in the movie, just because he kind of is this like sort of like bisexual Obi-Wan Kenobi for me. So, but that was a show that played with that kind of like late night comedy sensibility, but had a little bit more of like emotional grounding to it. Like, you know, he had songs about his mom who passed away and stuff, and we got to do a little bit of that in this show, Tim and Eric Beef House, as well. But I really wanted to just fully lean into sincerity in an embarrassing degree with the People's Joker.
I was wondering about the story so personal, yet you've kind of it was very like a crowdsourced collaborative process, and what that like push and pull is like between your own kind of personal journey and then bringing other artists and collaborators in.
I mean, it empowered me, I think, to be honest, just having that many people kind of co-signing my bullshit. I mean, like, I think, like, when you have, like, because I sort of didn't realize it at the time, but, like, built up this little DIY community around the making of this movie, and I think that was what just gave me any sort of ability to be honest about my story and stuff. And, you know, even in the writing stage with my co-writer Brie LaRose, like we're really pushing each other to write and talk about things that I think we were normally like afraid to talk about, or like that we would never pitch in like a writer's room or in an edit bay or anything like that. So I don't know. I really think, I mean, I feel like a lot of directors say this, but it's still like, I really just earnestly mean it. Like, I just don't think filmmaking is possible without like that sort of collaborative energy. And this movie really, I don't know that I really knew that until being in the middle of making this, just because of how much auteur theories kind of shoved down all of our throats in like media literacy and in film school and stuff.
Could you talk just a little bit about that process of drawing that group that you're talking about together?
Yeah, I put out a video. It was like May 2020, so like right at the start of COVID kind of getting taken over, and was basically just like, does anybody want to help me make a trans Joker movie? And kind of just thought only like 5 people or so would respond, but it ended up being like literally hundreds of people. Like it was so many, and artists of very different aesthetics, like mostly people too who didn't necessarily have aspirations of like working in film or TV or anything like that. It was like visual artists and 3D animators and when that happened, I think like the project kind of became just a lot more real to me, because I'd been watching independent film my whole life, and I'd never like thought of, I couldn't think of like a first-time director that had that many people at their disposal just to like kind of collaborate and make something. So it really seems like this cool opportunity. And the second that started, I also really wanted to make sure that everybody felt like it was a collaboration. Like I didn't want to micromanage people's aesthetics or anything like that. Like, we had a script and I had a vision sort of like what it would be in my head, but I really encourage people to sort of like lean into like what their what they do. Like we had an artist who made these kind of like low poly 3D models and stuff that looked like old video games. So it was like, okay, well, let's make like our Bat Cave look like, Doom or Quake or something. And it kind of was, the movie kind of showed me what it was supposed to be as we like worked through those collaborations. It was like really exciting, and I don't know that I'll ever be able to make a movie to that, like with that, to that degree ever again, like, because we just didn't have a safety net, really. It was just like, I thought the world was ending, and I thought nobody was going to ever see this. I never thought I'd have this conversation, So.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a kind of like dizzying amount of different kind of styles going on in the film. But another thing I was thinking about, kind of related to that, is that there's a mix of styles, but there's also a mix of tones and genres, and the film feels very confident and comfortable moving between styles and genres and tones. And I think that's something that you can see in a lot of trans art and trans cinema. And I was sort of wondering, do you think that has something to do with being trans? Like that we, in and of ourselves, we kind of challenge conventional categories and binary thinking, so that we end up sort of seeing that reflected in trans art and trans cinema?
I mean, maybe. I think maybe. I mean, I think like a lot of trans people actually in trans art almost takes itself too seriously, to be honest. Like I think like I really wanted to, because to me, like I think the thing that I was really inspired by in terms of like queer art and just queer expression was, I think, like trans shit posters and stuff that were like, I kind of watch like post like the most like irony pilled offensive meme in one post, and then in the next it'd be like them crying about like their hormones getting taken away, or like having like a beautiful conversation with their mom or something. So like, and also just I think like, you know, I'm really inspired by Bruce LaBruce and like his cinema to me is camp in the way that like camp actually is. Like I think the definition of camp has just become so kind of cloudy, and it's like people just use it to describe things that are like bad on purpose or whatever. And to me, it's like actual camp. It's like no, there's a real sincerity there, and there is also this like fun, colorful, vibrant energy to it. So I think I was really inspired by that, and I definitely do see it now that like, you know, there are a lot of like films and things, you know, trans artists are getting a lot more visibility now. Like, I think we just live in a world of information and having to kind of like switch between different feelings really fast. I never answer these questions good.
No,
That's
great.
I think that really speaks to like trying to capture the current moment that's can be so kind of difficult to like satirize and capture, and sometimes especially with trans cultures, they can kind of be captured more easily with like a meme, can say so much more. But thinking about showing this film now, it's kind of a year on from its premiere, and looking back, it kind of became at the center of this media and online conversation about a rise in trans-led cinema, many of whom you've collaborated with, such as Alice and Louise Weird. And I was wondering, like, how you feel about kind of all the trans film directors being canonized together when they're all making quite wildly different work. I just wondered whether you could talk to that.
I've never been asked this question this early in the morning. Louise Ward is actually sleeping on my couch right now because
So you can't deny there's a scene.
Just a little bit. But I think it's you know, partially it's a reaction to all of us sort of getting lumped together. You know, like I was screening The People's Joker right after we premiered it at TIFF. I was doing a secret tour in Australia in 2023, and the first question I did this Q&A at Melbourne, and the first question I got was, how does it feel? It was verbatim, how does it feel to be a part of the trans film movement? And at that point, I had met two Liz Purcell and Louise Ward. And I hadn't ever collaborated with them. So I got really hostile at the question because I was like, I'm not a part of a movement. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I know like 6 trans people, and you know, I've never been in. I've been in the same room as Jane Schoenbrunn, I think like twice, and we've never spoken in person or anything like that. Like, I think like all of us are like cheering each other on, but we're all like, I think, a little perplexed about kind of getting lumped together because there is just such a difference. I think every trans film I've seen has been so different. Like, I think especially like what Alice is doing is very different than what like Louise is doing or what I'm doing or what Jane is doing, and I don't know, but at the same time, like it's cool. Like I can kind of divorce myself from like the feeling of the slight discomfort I think I feel around it at times, because if I was on the other side of it, like if I was like a filmmaker who hadn't made a film yet, or, you know, a young trans person like watching what's happening, it would give me a lot of fucking hope for the future, just because like I didn't have this growing up. Like I looked up to just the worst people on the planet. Like, you know, I'm wearing a Kevin Smith shirt right now. So I'm glad it's happening, and yeah, everybody should check out Castration movie. Because I think it's like kind of an interesting commentary on like this sort of like amorphous definition of what a trans film is, because I think it's too early for all of us to say, because they've only really, you know, been coming out in this way for like the last 2 years or so. But it does feel good and to be a part of it. And you know, like I saw the TV Glow at the Alamo Draft House at like 5 o'clock in the evening, and you know, that's like a dumpy movie theater chain where you get to eat pizza and like crap while you watch movies, and the audience was just like full of trans women, and I was like, this is nuts, like this is so cool, like I had never had that experience before. So yeah, I think on some level, like it gives me hope, just for like, you know, things are bleak right now, but I think they're not gonna get rid of us. There's just too many of us. Like we and now we're a part of the economy. Like what?
Some words of hope there. Thank you, Vera. So I think at this point we're gonna open things up to the public. That's you. Just before we do, a quick note. Your question must have a question mark at the end. That means no comments. All questions tonight. Yeah, keep it brief. We came with some quite heavy duty ones, so maybe keep it fun. And no live stories. Unfortunately, we haven't got time. So okay, without further ado, some hands are up. You over there. Wait for the mic to get to you.
Okay, yeah. In the tone of keeping it fun, do you have a favourite joke from the film?
Did you get that, Vera?
No.
Sorry.
Favorite joke in the film?
Oh, Suicide Cop is. Movie. If only because it's like the only character that I really own in the movie. But there's just nothing more. There's just nothing more gratifying than watch a cop kill himself. Over and over and over again.
A lot of love, or maybe probably hate for Suicide Cop in the room. Another question. You there with the blue hair. Wait for the mic.
Hi. First off, there's one of the credited creators sitting next to me.
Hello?
Anyway, my question was, what's next? What are you working on now? Is it any movies and fun stuff?
What's next for Vera?
I'm trying to make a horror movie, and yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm getting to the place where like I'm really gonna try to make a movie this year either way, but I've got a couple things in development, and one of them's a horror film called Dead Name that is another like coming of age story, but like it's not really like a coming out story. It's kind of the story of like that moment that I think some of us have had, where it's like after you come out and you sort of like realize the destruction you caused by coming out in other people's lives, and it's kind of oh wait, I'm the bad guy movie. That's kind of how I've but it's like a cosmic horror thing. I've been describing it as the movie My Girl, if it was directed by Stuart Gordon and had sex magic.
Fabulous. Another question? How about you right there at the back?
what was the genesis behind the whole DC aspect and Batman and Joker aspect?
Why Batman? Why the Joker? Tell all.
Well, the short answer is just, you know, that there's the scene in the movie where young Joker goes and sees that Batman movie and like realizes she's trans. Just happened to me when I was like 6 years old. I went and saw Batman Forever and was like, I felt represented by Nicole Kidman as a 6-year-old boy. So, and I don't know, like these characters have just always been gay. Like they've always been very queer and like I think especially Joker like has like a very amorphous identity and stuff. But it's always been subtext, you know? Like, I wanted to make something that showed these characters in a way that was queer, that was on the nose, and yeah, and it's just they've always been there for me as a way of kind of understanding myself, and I don't think I really realized that until like I was in the process of making the movie. Really, like holy shit, like this, I really care a lot about Batman. It's amazing I've never had sex before. How much I care about Batman. It's and now I'm getting into Magic the Gathering.
Actually, we have another question. Do you want to pick this time, Jay?
Okay, can I pick the person that is dressed as the Joker there?
We have the Joker in the house.
There's always a Joker in the back.
There's always the Joker in the back.
Hi Vera. I don't know if you can hear me. Hopefully Sarah will be able to relay it. Would you be willing to share a favorite memory, whether it's like funny or something that you treasured, when making the movie? Like a moment when you were making the movie that just felt really special.
Favorite memory from the
I
film
mean, there
space?
were so many. The one that like first comes to mind is like there was the scene. Lynn Downey, who plays Joker's mom in the movie, is just, she's maybe like my favorite actor I've ever worked with. Like she's just she's just a pro, and like a lot of her scenes were very, she really followed the script. Like she didn't really go off the page, whereas like, you know, Nate, who plays Penguin, barely learned his lines. That character was like written for him and is based on him and like our relationship and stuff. So like he was able to do that. But there was that scene with Lynn where we were like at brunch and you know, we only really did 2 takes for every single setup in this movie. It was a really quick shoot, but that's kind of how I like to work. I don't really like to I'm an editor who doesn't really like to get a lot of coverage, just because I think it's a waste of everybody's time getting a lot of coverage. Like you really should shoot for the edit and just know what you want rather than like fucking around. Like but we were like on our second take. The first one, it was like pretty close to the script, and then we were doing the second one, and we just started screaming at each other, "You're mentally ill! No, you're mentally ill! No, you're mentally ill!" And it was like this moment. It just happened. Like that wasn't in the script, and it was like it felt so good to be screaming that at this like avatar for my mother. And it was like, I think it was one of the many moments that I felt just sort of this like magic of what we were doing. I think the other one that happened on set was like after we shot the scene where Joker and Jason are in front of the hospital and fighting, and it's kind of like the breakup scene and stuff. Like that was a scene I was really nervous to film, just because it was one of the more like honest and autobiographical sequences in the film. Like that was one of the many conversations that I'd actually had in my life, and I was honestly just worried kind of about getting triggered, and I knew I had to cry, and that seemed challenging. But working with Kane, who plays Mr. J, and it was just, I felt safe the entire time. And you know, we did it once. I think we did that one 3 times, and after the 3rd take, you know, we like both just paused for a second, and I remember sitting there, and Kane was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I really felt this huge, just like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like this like weight just immediately get lifted off of me. Like I had been carrying so much shit around just from like that relationship, and just from like that everything that I'd gone through up until that point with my transition and with my family and stuff. And you know, there were a lot of moments like that throughout the process where I felt myself just getting better. And that was really why I made this movie. It was like, in the beginning, it really was this like selfish replacement for therapy and recovery. There's only so far that you can take that, but it really it helped me sort of bridge all the eras of my life together in a way that finally made sense to me, and felt very healing.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. Does someone have a really, really good one? Shay, do you want to pick?
This person there.
Just on the aisle there, with your hand still up. There's a mic coming your way.
Hey, oh shit. That for a lot of trans people, you might have the experience of you accidentally tell a joke that's a little bit too trans for the audience you're in front of. And I was wondering how much of like sort of that experience went into the film, because obviously you're playing the character of this comedian, you're playing the Joker, and like a lot of the humor in the film is quite deeply trans, and I think that might link in a little bit to this idea of like the trans film scene, is that I think the big connective tissue is being slightly inscrutable towards a certain type of cis audience. But yeah, like I guess to put a fine question mark on it, as I was told to, how much of that sort of experience of being like the wanting to joke about your experience and your trans experience, and then sort of, you know, you make that joke and then it just does not land for a cis audience went into the film?
Well, I just don't, that just hasn't been my experience. Like I really, you know, like I've met so many, I've gone to screenings that were mostly cis people, and they're, I mean, look, like the laughter is a little more uncomfortable, I guess, during some scenes, but like, you know, like I remember we screened it in Wisconsin, which is just like one of the worst places in the United States. We screened it there, and there was maybe like 1 or 2 trans people in the audience. And this woman came up to me afterwards and was like, "That joke about coding, oh, it's so true. Incels and trans women, they code, don't they?" And I was like, cool, I'm glad you get it. I mean, that, you know, in the movie we said that assessment's transphobic, but I don't know, like, I try not to make stuff, I don't really think, I mean, a lot of artists I think disagree with this, but like I don't really think you should make stuff with an audience in mind or with expectations of what the audience wants or thinks they want, because I think a lot of times like people just, you know, don't actually, the audience doesn't actually know what they want until they see it. I think it's like, I feel like I have a responsibility just to be honest with my art and just tell the story that like I want to tell. And if the people that find it, you know, like I think we've reached this point in society where everybody at least knows somebody who's trans, and I think the experience of transness itself just is a coming of age experience, and everybody does that. Cis people have to come of age. We just do it in a way that's like kind of a lot of us more external and embarrassing, and I just don't. I haven't had the experience really you described, and I think like for me, I've really, you know, in these scary times of just fascism taking over the globe, I don't really want to think of myself as separate than cis people. Like I think we're all kind of having the same experience. Like humanity itself is just God dancing for itself. It's just a fucking blind amorphous field of energy stuck in these like meat bodies dancing around trying to understand itself. So sort of dividing ourselves, you know, by whether or not like we sleep with certain kinds of people or put boobs on our bodies or cut things off or turn things inside out. Like I just think it's a waste of time. I think it's like part of the thing that sort of keeps us all separate. Sorry if that's too new agey, but I've been meditating.
No, I think it's a wonderful note to go out on. So I think we just get out big round of applause for Vera and thank you all so much for coming tonight. Please make your way out through the fire exit here or to the side. We've got to get a lot of people in this room. Thanks for coming. Good night.